We're blessed here at this church to have so many men and women that are able to fill the pulpit and able to speak, and we're blessed. And I'm blessed to have one of our elders is going to speak to us today, Gregg. And Gregg, you've been a blessing to me ever since I've been saved. You were just a little kid when I got saved, but I was just a big kid, so it didn't matter. But through the years, you've been a blessing to me, and I appreciate you. Will you give a welcome for one of your elders, Gregg Wilkerson?
Yeah, I was just thinking, Hank, for those of you who wouldn't have been around, of course, I'm a lot younger than Hank. I don't know, he's a lot older than I am, I guess is a better way of putting it. But we were at the old church, and my brother Doug had been saved, and my brothers, and so we were all there, and a lot of people were coming in, and Hank was one of them that came in. He was a hippie. I mean, he was a stud, but he was a hippie, and he had long hair, and he was definitely from a different culture than some of us, and he was way over this way, as a lifestyle. But Pam was way over this way as a life. I mean, she was the church girl. I mean, she probably never looked cross-eyed or anything her whole life. She had been such a good Christian girl, and Hank was such not. You know what I mean? He wouldn't have ever suspected that they would ever get together, and now we can't get them apart. I mean, it's been 50 years. So anyway, it's amazing what God can do when we let Him do it. My wife isn't here today. She wasn't feeling well. She's had one of those bad coughs, and she didn't want anybody, noticing her, I guess. And so she's coughing at home, and it's really messing up our kissing life because she's doing all that coughing. You just can't do a lot of smooching when you're. And I'm gonna have to make up for that as soon as we get through this. Some of you wouldn't have marriage trouble if you do more kissing. See what Hank and Pam did. If you'll invest in some of that, then you won't have time to fight. It's hard to fight with somebody you're kissing, and you might try it. Just give it a shot. Hank had asked me some time ago to speak, so I've had plenty of time to meditate on this, and it's just always been the same thing ever since he asked me. He always tells me, if you get something, just let me know, and usually I just wait for him to say he wants me to do something, and then it's usually always there. And when you don't speak very often, it's easy to, it's easier to come up with something than the pressure these other guys feel that they're always having to crank stuff out. And but we're sure glad you're here today. I was just thinking about Kathy Shaw over here, and about how neat it is that she can be here. I know it's not convenient for her to get here, and probably been easier to stay at home, but she wants to be here. We're glad. Let's give her a hand. We're glad she's here. And I've got 2 or 3 pairs of glasses, so if you see me switch out, it's just because I can't see with some on. I can't see some without some on. So depends on the glasses. And actually, that's kind of, Nathan was talking about earlier a little bit about kind of where I want to go, and I was thinking about, there's different kinds of preaching, and there are some preachers, and I respect this, I'm not criticizing, I'm not judging it, but there's some preachers that they preach, and they separate themselves from their message. They won't ever, and feel like it's kind of a corrupt thing to ever put themselves in their message. Tell some story about themselves and inject that into the message. They're kind of what I call a purist. I've never been taught that, but it's what I've always thought as a purist. And we had a pastor like that at one time years ago, over 27 years ago. He was a purist. You very seldom heard him ever inject himself or his family or a story about his wife or he did tell a story once about his dog, but as a rule, I don't want to get into that. Whereas I'm just the opposite. I like to talk about myself. I'm just joking, kind of. But essentially, when you read a book by somebody, That's what they're doing. They're telling you what they've experienced in God, and they're kind of sharing. And so when you read their book, you're thinking, well, yeah, I've been through that, or I never saw that before, or I've experienced that. So you have that relationship that's going on, and then they share with you how God found them where they were and helped them get out and move on and grow, whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Gary and I know what I'm talking about. And so that's essentially, as I said, that Nathan kind of was saying some stuff that I've been looking forward to this, and that I enjoy talking about what I feel like God's doing in my life. Is that okay to say that? And I'm not embarrassed about it. I don't have to run from it. I'm just watching myself experience it, and I'm glad that I'm still experiencing something in my life. And I'm going to be 68 next month, and got saved here when I was 15. So we've been through a lot, and been around some things, seen some things, experienced some things, and some people experience things and it causes them to push them away, and some people experience things that cause them to be pulled in. Well, I've always wanted pulled in. How about you? But there are all those others. But as I see from my standpoint in life where I'm at today, what I've been experiencing, and what I see in others, is when you get to this age, for you young people, just relax, and this first part's not so much for you, but it will be one day. So you might want to get the tape or whatever it is now, and that at this point, at this age, whatever that older age is, we're trying to develop stability our whole lives, and we're trying to be. We want comfort. How many know comfort's really important? And we want calm, we want peace and quiet, we want stability, and that's what we've been working for our whole lives. And the only challenge is as we get, we have that lazy boy we like to take a nap in. I sleep in mine most nights, and we want comfort. The challenge with comfort and that lifestyle is you don't have the energy you used to have, but at the same time you're kind of withdrawing from society. You're withdrawing maybe even from God, because comfort has become such a big deal. Now, I'm going to jump, just kind of follow what you can, but, it's just like when I mentioned Hank and my brothers and several of us in here, we all got saved when we were young. And, man, we went, we had bus ministry back then. Was where we had a bus. You go around, pick up people, bring them to church. We'd go out on Saturday morning for 3 or 4 hours, and then we would come back on Sunday morning at 7 o'clock and go out on the bus and pick up people and go to church all morning, and then take them home when you get home about 2 o'clock, and then we'd go to church on Sunday night, and we'd go on Wednesday night, and then we had their meetings during the week, and then a lot of times during the Sunday afternoon, of course, again, remember, I met my wife when she was 15 and I was 16, and we'd go out and play, get everybody get together, we'd play football in the afternoon on Sunday afternoon. We just had all this energy. Remember that? You got enough energy to remember that? And, but we didn't have any money. We had a lot of energy, which is good, but we didn't have any money. And so, but today it's just the opposite. Today, I'm not talking like we're, all kinds of money here, but I'm just saying we're better off now than we were back then when we had all that energy. So which is better? Well, both are necessary, I think. Both are necessary. We used to talk about it a lot back then. But boy, if I had some money, I would help. I would do something. And we were doing something. It was just different than today. But as we look for peace and calm, my experience again, the point of that is kind of showing that the difference in energy. And here a while back, I was over here washing dishes in the cafeteria, and some young guy was making fun of me, was like, well, what are you doing washing dishes, and all. I said, well, buddy, I've been washing dishes since I was wiping your butt in the nursery, and when you were just a little bitty kid, it's just I don't do it as much as I used to, but you could sure jump in here and have at it if you're wanting to. He didn't seem to. But if there's any young people here today, and I think most of them are not here, want an opportunity to serve God in this church. I'm supportive of our youth group, and I think that's all good in camps and things, but you know what? Go up in the nursery and help out. Go over in the children's church and preach a message, or pick up trash, or get involved. Identify with service. Another growth that will give you is your experience in the world. Once it's just not all about church. It's learning to work with other people and to lead and to guide and to govern and to speak properly and prepare and be constant and consistent and helpful. So anyway, that was free. But they're not here anyway, so it doesn't matter. But my grandkids, as mentioned before, my grandkids have had great grandbabies, and my granddaughter's over here, and she's had a little boy called Denahi, and I call him Pookie, and then I've got another one, Shelly Ann, my grandson, and they're both younger than a year old. And what I have been rediscovered is, of course, we had kids, and then my kids had kids, and now my kids' kids have kids. And she lives with us and the baby, and we enjoy it. But, I was just thinking, I don't know why people have babies, because they can't do anything for themselves. I mean, why do you have a baby? I mean, you're asking, you go to having babies, you're just getting something that can't do a thing for itself till they're about 18. And then there are some that it goes longer than that. I mean, they can't change their pants, they can't change their diapers, they can't lay down, they can't get up, they can't eat, they can't take a bath, they can't change, they can't, and they control the whole house with their, I mean, as soon as they don't get what they want, they're screaming. But all they got to do is giggle, just a little bit, smile. All of a sudden, the world is okay. But I want to tell you that my thought here this morning as I kind of move on is this collides with stability, calm, and peace and quiet. Now, we love it most of the time, but, our goals seem to be, of course, actually peace and quiet and calm and comfort is almost kind of like dying. I mean, we're kind of drifting off into the darkness, but at least there's no pressure. We're retired. I actually just got my Social Security check the other day. Now, I'm not retired, but they always said it wouldn't be there when I got there, but it was there. At least I got it put in my bank. But it's intrusion. We're trying to take a nap, and this kid's screaming, or his pants are dirty, or they wet their pants, or they, stunk up the house. I mean, this is what intrusion does. It totally collides with your comfort. Nothing wrong with comfort. I'm all for comfort, and I'm all for the lazy boy, and I'm all for peace and calm and quiet, and there's good things. Sheep love calm waters. I get all that. But real life intrudes. It intrudes. It just is not going to ask you if it's okay if I show up, or if I mess my pants, or if I puke in the floor. Now, some of us have grandbabies, and some of us get pets, and we really experience much the same thing. I've got 4 cats, and every one of them feel like they need to puke up in the floor every now and then, and I feel like a professional puke picker-upper. I just go around and they go in phases. I mean, just like your kids messing their pants. I mean, just like everybody messes their pants at the same time, and then other times we just go kind of a blank spot for a while, and my wife will look at me and say, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, I'm just going to clean it up. I don't know what to do. I don't know why they're doing it. And, well, we could just quit feeding them. And I said, okay, if you want to do that, we can do that too. But being the man of the house, I have to make those governmental decisions of leadership on what to do with the kids and the pets. So I try to do that. But there's a collision. And you know what? It's a good collision. It's a good collision. Now, I heard somebody tell me the other day, we were talking about this, and he said, well, his parents, which would be great-grandparents in his family, are moving because they live close to his family, and they want them to babysit. So they want to get away from all that. And I get that. I'm not saying that's a terrible thing. I mean, some people just aren't, it's just not their bag. I got it. But they're wanting to move away from life because it's intruding, and they want calm. They want quiet. They don't want to be disturbed. They want to kind of drift back and have everything under their control. And I don't know if that's a terrible thing, but there is no life there. It's just dark and quiet and calm. And no intrusion, nobody crying, no noise. If you would turn to Mark 12:41, and I know we had a lot going on today, so I will try to skip some reading if I can, but I think it's important. What I really am talking about today is, and I know we just had Christmas and a lot of activity. I hope everybody had a good one, but you kind of just feel like you need to kind of take a deep breath and kind of look for some comfort and relaxation after all that. But in the Mark 12:41 through 44, we're talking about the widow and the offering, and I'm not going to be taking an offering or anything like that. It's got nothing to do with that. But Jesus sat down near the collection. Hank spoke about this scripture here a while back, and it just really stuck in me. And it says that Jesus sat down near the collection box in the temple and watched. He said he sat down and he watched the crowds drop in their money. Many rich people put in large amounts. Then a poor widow came and dropped in 2 coins, small coins. They weren't just coins, they were small. And Jesus called his disciples and said to them, I tell you the truth, this poor widow has given more than all the others who are making contributions. For the rich, they give a tiny part of their surplus, but she, poor as she is, has given everything she had to live on. She gave everything she had to live on. I don't know about you, but I know when I first got saved or I actually started a family, I was probably making $5 or $6 an hour, and of course, it really doesn't matter what you're making, but in your head you're thinking that. You're thinking, gosh, we're not. How do we tithe? But tithing and giving is a habit. Now, I'm not, again, taking an offering. I'm just, as we're passing through here, you have to learn to tithe. So, I want to tithe. Well, you got to learn. It just won't come to you as an inspiration. I mean, there's something in your heart that's really wanting to tithe and give, but it's not always easy. Now, it's easier for me today, but it still is always, of course, the numbers are bigger now. You know what I mean? I mean, back when I only needed to give $20 or whatever because I got $200 a week, but it was tough. I mean, it was difficult. I don't know if any of you remember some of us years ago when you'd buy your Pepsi or Coke, you got the bottles, the glass bottles you pay a deposit on. How many remember that? Yeah. Some of you don't know what I'm talking about. And it was a real source of income, though, because when you went to buy your pop, you had to pay your deposit, and then when you drank everything, you could either trade them back in for your next one, or you could cash them in. Well, the big benefit was when you're as poor as we were, you'd have to go in to get milk for the baby or whatever, and you'd take in the pop bottles and cash them in so you could buy milk, and of course then you didn't have your deposit for the next soda and when you ever got that far. Or the other thing was we would go, you're rich on Friday when you get paid, you got this $200 or whatever it is you're getting, and you're really, but by the Wednesday or so, you got to go through the couch and the car seat and the ashtray looking for change. Anybody? Yeah, we When we weren't doing that, we were looking for the car keys usually, because the kids, you get them and you don't hang them up, and no telling where they're going to end up. But this widow lady, so we have to think about for a second what a widow is. I assume we all know, but this is a woman that had a husband, and for whatever reason he has died, and the heartache and the difficulty and the pain that I'm sure that folks go through when they experience that, and can only imagine. And she comes and she gives her offering, and before she gives her offering, and I again, most of the time when ministry always depicts things as like, you're not giving enough, you're not doing enough, you're not praying enough, you're not coming to church enough. You're just kind of running short. Before you get saved, we tell you, come as you are. And then after you get there, they say, what are you doing? You're not doing anything right, You might know what I'm talking about? Does this sound okay? Can you hear me all right? Okay. Well, act like it's okay so I can. But it just sounds kind of different here. So, where was that? You remember that? Do what? Yeah. I was just testing. I just want to make sure you was listening. So, the widow had lost her husband, so she's going to the offering. Now, I did not know this, but if you read it, I know I'd say this first. That we tend to think of Jesus was sitting down, I don't know if he sat on a box, and he's going to judge the rich from the poor. And he's like, oh, those stinking rich people are giving all that, but they're not giving, this woman here, she's doing more. That kind of, I think Jesus, it's just my opinion, I think Jesus was happy about what he was seeing. I just don't think you can give to God and not make God happy. Well, it's just not enough. Well, I don't know how much enough is. It's kind of like Donald Trump. He sounds like, he is like worth $8 billion, and that just sounds like so much. And then Elon Musk, he's worth 800 billion or something. I mean, God, how do you quantify that in your head? It's just how much is enough? I think Jesus was happy what he was seeing, and what he was seeing was him and the disciples as he's sitting there watching, and I think he's happy about what he's seeing. These people are coming in and dropping in their offerings, but you got to realize back then it's not like us today where we write a check or we do a credit card or whatever. We slip it's a quiet thing. Back then they had all been coins, and the widow lady only had 2 coins, and hers was 2 copper coins, and they were real small copper coins that was just near worthless. We'll just say they were worth a penny to show you how worthless they were. So she wasn't given much at all. But the unique part about this story, at least the way I read it, is that Jesus was sitting there, and they had. It says that there was different boxes of offerings. There are different kind of offerings that you could give in the Jewish world, and I won't go into all that. But when they came up to give their offering, especially if you were rich, Gary, you made a lot of noise, because when you dumped your offering in there was all this banging going on. How many of you don't raise your hands, to the casino back when they used to have quarters, and you'd hit the slot, and man, you'd win, and ding, 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 and all this cash was just falling out. Anyway, and that's the way the offering would have been. They were dumping all their offering in there, and they were given good money, whatever that is. You know who rich people are? They're just ones that make more money than you do. You realize that? We always call people who make a little more money than we do, they're rich. What do you suppose the people are calling you that make less money than you? Well, anyway, just a thought. And so the rich people like to make a lot of racket, And even today, with the checks, there's just something in us that if I'm giving $1,500 or $100 or whatever you think a lot is, I want somebody to see it. I want somebody to know. That's kind of how we are. We're finally obeying God, but we want somebody to appreciate it. At least when those guys count it up there, they'll write your name down, and somebody in here will know that you're you're really coming across. And we're glad that you do. Somebody's got to do it. So as Jesus sat there and he watched all this, he said, he pulls the disciples over and he says, look at what this widow woman did. She gave 2 worthless pennies. But the rich people are giving out of their surplus, and that's the way I give mostly. That's the way most of you are giving. I'm not criticizing it. Fortunately, we're at the point in our life where we can give. We have a surplus. There was a time there wasn't no surplus at my house. We had to sell the pop bottles and look for change. But I know what it is not to have anything and to have so much expectation of others on you to provide. But, you know, he looked and he said, look, these guys are giving out of their surplus, but as she gave all that she had. And here's a phrase that this is just me. She gave more, according to Jesus, she gave more than the rich people. She gave, and you imagine when the rich people are dropping their coins in and bang, 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 and all that wood is just going off and everybody's hearing it and hoping when they pour theirs in, they can make as much noise or more noise than the last person. And she walks up there and she drops in, tink, tink, a couple of copper coins. But Jesus spots her. Jesus recognized something significant here that needs to be noticed. And see, this is back to where I started. As life especially moves along and we mature in God, we tend to become insensitive and unaware. We're no longer conscious of real life anymore because we want comfort. We don't want to be interrupted. But Jesus, being who Jesus was, in the middle of the offering, says, I'm going to interrupt this whole procession here. I need everybody to see what's going on here. This little gal, this poor woman here, just did something that nobody did. Nobody has done in this offering. But she gave less than anybody, but she gave more than everybody. How's that possible? How is that possible? Well, I think what Jesus is trying to teach in this story, in my opinion, he was trying to teach and give us a sense of value, sense of real worth. The world's trying to tell us if you were in there and you had a big bag of money and you were pouring it in and making all this noise, thank God for you. We're glad. We hope that's, that I want to give the most money to this body that I can. That's my goal. So you got to talk so much about money? Money is a very good indication of where our heart is. Whether it's 2 cents or a big bag. It'll be a direct indication. It'll be a disruption in your life where you're saying, I love God and I want to serve Him, but you're holding it tight. Well, it's just because all I got is $1,000, Gregg. I just can't be given any. I got, maybe it's 2 pennies. What it really comes down to is that this woman had a devotion. She had a desperation. Now, we could conclude on the negative side, or not negative, but the other side, that, well, she, if she's such a woman of faith, how come she only had 2 cents? I've tithed in my younger years and given and worked and did all those things I mentioned. How many times have you ended up coming to church and you got a couple cents, or you had to go through the couch? Did that make you faithless or faithful? We also don't know what went on when her husband was alive. Maybe he was a rich millionaire. And then he died, and she lived her whole life kind of working off that money, and she finally got down to the last 2 coins. We don't know. But I will tell you this, in my opinion, that no one gives that much. I want to read this, what I wrote down. No one gives that much that heaven doesn't begin to move. I don't care if it's 2 cents, 10 cents, 10,000. When you finally approach God with how you got saved, by the way, you had a sense of desperation, determination. You didn't care about comfort. You didn't care about safety. You didn't care about stability. There was an urgency. There was a desperation to get to God, to see something happen, which is what I believe was going on with her, that all heaven begins to move. So if you're here today and you feel like God hasn't moved in your life for a while, we've all been there. It's not necessarily that you've been doing anything wrong, but there's something right that you need to remind yourself. It's just like, again, I'll use the example in giving, and I saw Hank do this for years, and it learned a lot from what he did. Is, sometimes as you begin to be blessed, you get to thinking you're rich. You get to thinking you got a lot, and that's okay. You got more than you used to have. But all of a sudden, having that sense of presence and determination to make sure you keep growing in God, you almost sometimes have to play games with your mind and your heart and kind of, put things aside and make yourself feel like you don't have as much as you think you'd have. You don't think too much of yourself. Are you with me? You're not thinking, well, I'm better off than everybody else because when I put my offering, it makes a lot of noise, so I must be better than them. No, what is better is when you give more than everybody else and it doesn't make any difference than what you actually gave. It's a heart issue. It's a mind issue. It's a relation issue. Saying, God, I want to cause heaven to stir with my determination, my devotion, my commitment, not because I'm better, not because I give more than anybody else gives, but each of us are individuals. Each of us get to decide what we want to do and what how we have to do it. But what happens is we get to the calm, comfort, peace and quiet. We quit using our faith. We quit reaching out. We're actually reaching in. We're backing up. We're trying to get a comfy pillow and a nice blanket. We finally got a good cushion, which is fine. I'm happy for you, your cushion. But we quit reaching out. We quit believing. We quit, or at least we get soft. Is that a better way of saying it? We get reluctant to. We don't want to be disturbed. Hello. Boy, it took me a long time to get there, didn't it? We just don't want to be freaking disturbed. Could you just leave me alone? I did my dishes. I wiped some butts in nursery years for years. And I've done this. I've done that. I've done this. I've done that. So let's just all calm down. And I'm not asking you to exert any more energy. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm just suggesting to encourage you to consider, where's your devotion? Where's that? You're gonna. Paul said, stir up the Spirit. It's because it won't maybe do it on its own. You're going to have to stir it up. You're going to have to seek it out. You're going to have to look for it. You're going to have to make that effort. Now, I had a whole lot more, but I'm not going to do all that. I mean, you took so long to listen, it just took me longer to tell you. So let me conclude with this last thought, and then I think we got something else going. But I don't think you can have that kind of devotion. That it's just like in 2 Kings. There, I won't read it, where the widow. And again, there must have been a lot of widow women back then. And she came out and she said to the prophet, she said, they're going to take my sons. We have too much debt, and I don't have anything. He said, well, what do you have? And she said, I don't have anything. Well, she did have some oil. Just like some of you are thinking, I don't have opportunity. Everybody's against me. I don't, everything's after me, and that's how you start thinking. Instead of Jesus, or in this case, the prophet said, what do you have? And he said, I've got this little bit of oil. And he said, well, that's enough. He said, go get it. Go borrow pots and pans from anybody you can, and don't borrow a few. I like that. Don't borrow a few. And they go out and they borrow all these pots and pans, and he says, go in, shut the door, and just start pouring oil. So she went in, they just kept filling up pots and pans, filling up. And as Christians, many times we'll do that, and then that's kind of, well, praise the Lord, I got, several 5-gallon buckets of oil. And that's kind of where sometimes some of our miracles end. But the prophet said, now, take them and sell them. And don't just go sell them and go have a party. Go sell it. Pay your debts. Oh, man, this is good. This is getting good preaching. Now, I imagine you're glad I'm going to be quitting. Pay your debts and then live on the rest. So, again, here's a widow, as I conclude, that finds herself in desperation. Looks like the doors are closing on her. Things are pretty tough. And God comes along and says, well, what do you have? And he takes that little 2 cents of oil that she had, and he blesses it. Pay your debts. Live on the rest. The widow that I first told you about, I believe, we don't know. I don't believe you can come to the threshold of God, drop in all your living desperation, that life would have had to change for her after that. You just don't make those kinds of commitments and desperate moves that just doesn't cause Jesus, cause heaven, cause all angels to get all stirred because they're seeing somebody finally taking a step and believing what's going on around here. Amen? And I just don't think it just ended there. She just went home and died, gave her 2 cents. And she went to heaven anyway. Not the end of the world. It's not all about money. It's not all about things. It's all about life, though, I think, in eternity. So, anyway, if you would bow your head with me right now, Father, thank you. I pray for these that are here today, that they would have a spirit of determination, a spirit of a sense of direction, and Father, that we wouldn't be just given the comfort and peace and safety and quiet, but we also would see Father, a disruption as an invitation, a disruption as an invitation to something greater, something good. Before we just get to the end of this thing, we'll have again experienced some great moves of God, some great things of God, some understanding that we didn't have when we were younger, that we're seeing now and making sense now, and we can be a part of that. And it's not quite all the work it used to be. It comes to us a little easier, Father. And we just love you. We thank you for what you're doing here in our body and in our lives. If you're here today and you, why don't you stand up with me, if you would, real quick here. And maybe we're not going to go through a big invitation here, so to speak, but I just sense there's a few people that you're in a position where you're kind of like that woman with the 2 cents. I mean, you've pretty well done everything you feel like you can do, and you just really need to see God do something in your area, maybe your finances, your marriage, your home. Is there anybody who would raise your hand and say that? Is there anybody like that? Okay, well, I guess we're all in pretty good shape, and I'm going to assume that some of you just aren't filling up to raising your hand. Father, whether they raise their hands or not, only the Spirit can reveal. Help us not just go after information, but revelation. To be revealed where we are and what's going on and how we can move to the next spot. And we just love you so much, and we thank you and give them that strength that it takes to take that next step. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for being here. We do have one of the things that's going to happen, I understand. If it's going to happen, anybody know what I'm talking about? They're not over here, so don't worry about it? Okay. They were they were supposed to be the children's churches. Maybe were going to come, but I got done too quick because I'm so short-winded, I guess. So, do you have anything you wanted to say, Pastor? You want to sing or anything?
Well, no, I won't. Thank you, Gregg. Appreciate that message, and hope this will be a year that you'll be believing God, and God will be blessing you in all those areas of your life. And, you know, blessing makes me want to be more committed to Him. The more He blesses me and the more He does in my life makes me want to be closer to Him. And so anyway, hey, I love y'all. Thank you for being here. Or somebody coming now? I don't know what we were supposed to do, so Gregg does, so I guess we'll let him do it. So you guys be blessed. We love you. We thank you for being here today, and you be blessed. We're going to have some baptisms if you want to hang around and watch that. I speak blessings on you, and we'll see you next Sunday.